My name's Cleyo. I'm the Fisheries Biologist with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, and so it's my job to um, inventory the aquatic organisms in our lakes and streams, which includes the inland lakes and streams as well as the Great Lakes. And my area of coverage is in the Lake Erie Management Unit, so it's all the waters that drain into Lake Erie in the state of Michigan. And I cover specifically the northern part of the Lake Erie Management Unit, so I have the whole Clinton River watershed as well as the watersheds in the management unit that proceed north. So everything that dumps into the St. Clair River and Lake St. Clair. From 2002 to 2017, we did see stakeholders having a bigger interest in preserving the natural systems and actually taking more ownership in the river over that time period. And so things like green infrastructure, habitat projects that had gone on, people, municipalities as well as just private residences allowing better buffer strips on the river, so we're not, we don't have like excess things coming from lawn maintenance or anything like that coming, less of that coming in when we have buffer strips. And lots of small things that aren't huge for the whole watershed, but lots of small things can add up, and we do see improvements from that. So the more we protect our systems, and the more we effort we put into naturalizing some of these systems so they can function in the proper ways, that's beneficial for our aquatic organisms. There's the saying, death by 1,000 cuts, and that can go the other way too. In little small projects, if there's one here, one there, one there, that adds up over time and can make a big improvement. Paddling, when I first started working for the DNR, was pretty much just a few kayakers, but nobody was really fishing from kayaks, and people fishing from canoes. That was pretty popular, but it wasn't as popular as it is today. Today, we have kayak launches all over the place because people are finding value in that, and it's an easy way for people. You don't have to have a motorized boat or anything. It's a lot less maintenance. It's cheaper to buy a kayak, so that type of paddling has dramatically increased over the course of my career. So. And the technology going with kayaks and providing better platforms for people to fish from and stuff, so that gives people the ability to access portions of the river that might have been harder to wade to. Didn't want to walk quite as far. You can cover a lot more ground, getting to some of the more deep holes where especially the large fish like to hang out, and those are a little easier or a little better for people to fish. And so having that kind of access has dramatically changed, and we see a big increase, and that's a huge connection between fishing and paddling sports. Paddling's and the improvements there are very much locally driven. So by the Watershed Council and the different municipalities, by providing the access points with like I said, the kayak launches and things like that are now kind of throughout the whole main stem of the Clinton River. Having so I guess to your question, the bigger drive has been from that level. There's some, and then there's the stakeholders that come into play too. By helping clear out logs. There's volunteers that go out there and clear out logs, and while there's also municipalities that do that, but that's a big part of the paddling piece. And I think the growth in that has been that through education and outreach and conversations with other folks, we've gone from everybody wanting to get all the wood out of the stream so that there's no impediments throughout the stream, doing that in a way that's good for the system, because from a fish standpoint and from a fisheries biologist standpoint, having wood in the river is huge. Like that's a huge chunk of a huge factor of habitat for fish. From how a log jam will create scour and create deeper pools, expose gravel for spawning. The wood itself is there, gives them a current break, so they can kind of get in there and not have to spend a lot of energy to swim, fighting the current. It also provides for macroinvertebrates to persist, so that's food for fish, which is big too. So lots of value of having that wood in the stream. Yeah, one of the biggest ways I've seen change in paddling is, I think the ability and understanding of the access points is dramatically different now. It's, with the water trails being the biggest example of that. I can plan out my trip so much easier knowing the like appropriate places, like safe and easy places to get out of the stream, as opposed to like, I think I can get to this cross section or this road crossing, and then I have to drag my kayak or canoe up a huge embankment. Now we have launches and stuff that I can say, okay, it's going to take me, it's going to take me about, so many hours to get from this point to this point. So we can either have someone come pick me up, I can plan a little bit better, or we can, stage those cars at places that are just much easier for us to get in and out. And then there's the community that comes with paddling, with more people paddling. There's a lot of forums out there, so if there's a big log jam, it can go look at those forums to see like where those issues are at, so I can be aware of them ahead of time. I'm not like approaching something that's dangerous, and I know that's coming, and so I have a better idea when to get out in portage or things like that. So that's a big difference. So a recent one was doing some work with the Watershed Council. It was the work one, and going down, and we had a local guide that was kind of helping us navigate. She spends a ton of time on the river, and so having her out there and just getting a little more understanding because she spends more time on the river than I do. Getting her perspective on what's going on out there and the things that she's seeing that I don't get to see day to day. Because again, I cover, we cover all the Lake Erie Management Unit drainage. So when we're doing work, we're all over the place. I don't get to only focus on the Clinton. And so getting that day-to-day insight was a huge thing for me, and a really good memory. Yeah, I would say you need to give it a shot, give it another chance, because it's a beautiful stretch of stream. There's a lot of really neat things out there. While we have a lot of urbanization, you're going to see a lot of infrastructure. There's also some parts where you can get into the Clinton. You can just, put your paddle up, rest, and just go with the flow, and it'll feel like you're up north. There's spots that are just completely wooded, look really good, and it's very relaxing. And there's some really neat things to experience out there, as well as if you like fishing and you want to go paddling, it's a great way to go experience the Clinton, because there's a lot of good fishing opportunities out there for a variety of species, and we have a lot of good resources to give you that information before you go out there, and give you some ideas where to target too. So for the future, just improved access, continuing to maintain the good access we have, and developing some maybe even some improved shore fishing spots, because not everybody has paddling's big and it's accessible. It's but not everybody has that opportunity. So providing those shore fishing spots as well would be a huge thing from a fishing standpoint. And then where there are opportunities to grow the access points along the river, those would be big points for us moving forward too. The Clinton River is a great spot. Tons of access. There's some really good fishing opportunities out there, and it's a beautiful stream. It's had a long history, and had a lot of impact to it over the years. But there's a lot of people that care a lot about it, and it's a beautiful chunk of water, and we're fortunate to have something really good in our backyard.